Hello everyone, it's me, Generic Pie, here with something a little bit different for you today. So I've been playing War of the Ring online on the Discord server for about 2 years now, or coming up to 2 years. I have played not a huge number of games compared to a lot of players on the server. I've played about coming up to 150 games. Um, I'm not one of the very best players. I'm okay. I've my peak is probably in the top 40 ish, and generally somewhere between there and 120, depending on how well I'm playing and how kind the Java gods are being to me. But I've been around the block a few times, and when I play War of the Ring, I tend to, when I lose a game, I consider what did I do wrong in that game, and then I add it to a little notepad on my phone. And over time, by losing a lot of games, I've built up quite a long list. And I thought it would be fun to share that and just kind of talk through some of the things that I've learnt playing War of the Ring, some of the mistakes that I've made. So some better players may disagree with some of the things that I come out with. But I think this might be useful for some new players. Maybe if you've only just started getting into War of the Ring, or you've only just started playing online. I think some of this stuff will prove useful, and hopefully will benefit some new players. So it's helped me, um, and yeah, let's get into it. So I've made a list of 32. This video is going to be about the free people, a guide to sucking less at the free people. And I'm going to go through these points. It's going to be quite a long, rambly video. I was considering making a really well-structured video with lots of graphics and stuff, but I can't be bothered because only like a few hundred people are really in this community. So I just thought I'd just keep it into just a nice, unstructured ramble. And it'd be great to hear people's thoughts below. So, number one. Pretty much every single one of these will directly tie to a game that I lost. Needless removal of fellowship members when corruption is a concern. So this was a game where I was doing pretty good with the fellowship, cruising up through the high pass, somewhere around here, somewhere around Old Ford or Rostagabel or whatever this one's called. And I decided to send Gimli on a little adventure. I can't remember if it was something related to Book of Mizarble, or I just sent him to defend. I sent Gimli out. I then lost that game due to 1 point of corruption. 2 points of corruption, something like that. And I directly tied that loss to sending Gimli out. I'm guessing in this game, corruption was a concern. Maybe the corruption was already an issue for the Fellowship. Because sometimes sending Gimli out to Erebor, especially if you've got Book of Mizarble, can win you games. So this one's quite debatable. But it's something to consider. If you've already been ravaged by nasty corruption cards, character cards from the Shadow, they've been throwing Isildur's Bane at you for a 3, and Gandalf's died for a 1, and, Strider's got sniped by Lure of the Ring, maybe don't send Gimli on a little adventure. Maybe don't send Boromir, scampering off down south to Minas Tirith. Number 2. Overly defensive in one region, ignoring others. So this is something that I've done many times, especially when I was starting out. Is typical example would be the Shadow is attacking the Dew line. So you use all of your muster dice to get the elves to war, but you only maybe muster one elf to do that. You get one elf in Woodland Realm. And maybe you put lots of effort into getting the North to war, and then again, maybe you only get like one elite mustered in Dale or in Carrick or something like that. Meanwhile, Dol Amroth is just completely undefended, and all it takes is one sneaky, sometimes you can forget, Corsairs of Umbar can creep up on you. Next thing you know, either they've drawn that dastardly card, Dol Amroth is under siege, and you've lost the game, or at least given the Shadow a very cheap stronghold, because these 3 guys can easily be beaten even without Shadow leadership attacking them. Or maybe even they just roll a ton of attack dice and you don't have any musters, and then they can just do a big charge through Pelargir, through Lamodon, into Dol Amroth, and just yeah, another, basically get a cheap stronghold. This can also be true of for example, Rohan. You know, sometimes if you know, needlessly using muster dice elsewhere, sometimes it can be good to get Rohan to war, or, you know, just make sure you don't forget your weak spots. Another example is Woodland Realm. I've had that before, where I get the Elves to war early, and Woodland Realm looks fine. It's just fine. No one's anywhere near it. You know, they've attacked Lorien, the Southrons and Eastlings are nowhere, and you think, I don't want to waste an Elven elite in Woodland Realm. And then, lo and behold, you know, they have a massive turn. Shadow gets a massive turn. You get no musters, and they get hordes from the east and 5 attacks. And before you know it, Woodland Realm is under siege. You've already used Thranduil's archers as for a valor in some other fight because you didn't think you needed it, and they get another cheap stronghold. So yeah, just avoiding giving up really cheap strongholds, basically. Number 3, forgetting to move Gandalf into stronghold when desperate. So yeah, kind of a classic Hail Mary move in War of the Ring is to send the Gandy man into battle to wave his big staff around, bop some orcs on the head, and importantly, take away that cheeky Nazgul leadership. So yeah, so I think when I was a newer player, I didn't do this as much, perhaps. So don't forget about that option. You know, whether you might often it's used through We Prove the Swifter or Gwyer here. You know, getting Gandalf from Fangorn, you can get him into all sorts of places. With We Prove the Swifter, you can get him into Dol Amroth. You can get him into Minas Tirith. You can get him into Lorien. You can even get him into Dale. Yeah, and if you move once, then use one of those cards, you can get him into Grey Havens, into Rivendell, all sorts of places. So yeah, that is a very, very important play for one of the tools you need in your arsenal as the free people's player. I'm not going to be talking about the more kind of, I suppose, dice economy and the way you actually think about the game. I think that's a whole other topic to go into. This is more just about very specific instances of where I sucked. Anyway, not moving first in Mordor. Unless you have a very good reason, always move first in Mordor. Yeah, so this has cost me many times, and I've seen newer players make this mistake as well. So, your Fellowship has got into Mordor, and you see your dice roll, and you think, oh, I really want to play this card, or oh, I really want to muster in something, you know, something non-essential. You do that, maybe absent-mindedly, maybe you're rushing, and then the Shadow puts in a red tile with their first die of the turn, and then you move, and then you hit that exact stupid red tile because Java does that. It loves to do that. And that is that's a really painful. It's lost. You can lose games to that so easily. There are instances when it is important to do something else. You know, there might be a really vital defensive move you need to play. You might need to play a power 2 great to defend Lorien, to prevent it getting destroyed in one go. You might need to, you know, play a really essential defensive card. You know, there are definitely instances where it's better to not move first. Maybe if the pool is horrendous, you really want to get a blue tile in there just to give you a chance. Because if you put in a blue tile, they put in a red tile, you know, at least you've got it's tit for tat. But yeah, definitely something to consider. Definitely consider, like, if you don't have any other really, really strong reason, just move the Fellowship. Number 5, giving away a ring at a critical moment. Weigh up the odds before you do this and think about what your opponent will do with the ring. Yeah, so this is a game I played a long time ago. Can't remember who I was against, but I was doing pretty well as a Fellowship. I think I was close to winning the game against the odds. And then I used a ring, and that ring meant that the Shadow, I believe that the Shadow could play Corsairs of Umbar, something like that. Or allow them to do an attack they wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. And if I'd just taken a moment, I think I could have probably survived that turn. I think it was giving them that die won the Shadow the game. It allowed them to do that extra attack. Whereas I probably could have maybe not moved that turn, and survived one more turn. Yeah, it was something like that. I can't remember the exact specifics, but yeah, just when you use a ring, don't just get tunnel vision. Remember what your opponent could be doing with that specific ring. Okay, this one ties into number 4. Not hiding in Mordor. Unless you have a very good reason, always hide in Mordor. So pretty much everything I just said, in this instance, it'll be you don't hide in Mordor, and then your opponent plays Breaking of the Fellowship, or they play Morgul Wound, or they play one of those cards that, you know, can only hurt you when you are not hidden. So yeah, that can also be, yeah, just hide unless you have a very good reason not to. Not killing Strider for 3 when time is a non-issue. Just let the man die. You never know what horrible cards JGB has waiting for you. Yes, it's always JGB. Or take a random at the very least. Okay, so I got quite specific with this one. So I think for some reason in earlier games, I think when I first started playing the game, I used to go for lots and lots of randoms. You know, whenever you hit a big tile, I would just do a random almost every time. Or I would just eat the 3. But there are definitely times when, if corruption's a bit of an issue, or has the chance of becoming an issue, I think first things first, if you get a 3 early game, I think just take a random. Unless you're kidding Gandy, take a random. That's the best play. But mid game, when Strider's, you know, you're kind of around here, you're doing okay. Time isn't essential. Yeah, this is the crucial part when time is a non-issue. If you're up against it, you've got to do whatever you can to keep the Strider man alive, because he can get you over the line. But there are definitely instances where you just got to let him die. You just got to let him die. Yeah, I think in this game against GJB, I just added 3 for stuff. I think I just stupidly added 3, which took me up to like 6 corruption, when I should have done a random or killed Strider. And then GJB just had a ton of, like, all the, you know, Isildur's Bane for a 3, Candles of Corpses for a 2, and then I just got, you know, destroyed by corruption. Yeah, so that's nothing personal, GJB. Awesome player. Love that guy. But yeah, I think I had a couple of rough corruption games against you, if you watch this video. Number 8. Being careless with combat cards. If you're going to discard a card next turn, use it. So yeah, I think card economy is something that, if you ever watch Galahad B's excellent channel, he's one of the best players of this game. He often talks in his commentaries a lot about like thinking about what am I going to do with these cards, and you don't want to overdraw, you know, needlessly, and then have to discard cards. So if you do have a full hand, just, you know, play them in combat. You know, it's because you're going to draw unless you have a really specific reason again. Yeah, so I think I was probably overdrawing using the Witch King's ability, maybe not playing cards in combat when I should. Oopsie, giving away all my tricks. Yeah, so I can't remember that one too well. All right, number 9. Don't muster a nation you had loads of muster cards for. So this was a bit obvious. But I'm guessing there was a game when I probably started off the game and I had maybe Guards of the Citadel and Imrahil of Delamroth or Kidan ships, and I was still mustering these. Like, what? You don't need to muster them, man. You got, like, you can fill up the struggles using 2 cards and save yourself all the. Just let the opponent attack you. Equally for the elves, if they're attacking Woodland Realm, and Lorien early game, you don't need to get the elves to war if you're already holding Celeborn's Galadrim and Thranduil's archers, or, you know, Kindred or whatever, because you're going to use up 3 muster dice to get them to war potentially, and then you're going to have to use then 2 dice to use those cards, and it's just, what are you getting? You're using like 3 dice to get 1 extra muster or something like that, maybe, and those dice could then be used elsewhere. They could be used to get Gondor to war. They could be used to even get Rohan to war. They could be used to get the North to war and do something that will give you more net value, basically. Yeah. So that was a bit silly of me. Trying to be too clever with mustering. Woohoo! Muster the most vulnerable stronghold hard. This is, again, like Captain Obvious stuff. But there have been games when I think this is a classic me thing to do. Is just overthinking mustering, trying to be like, oh, maybe I can get a little leader in here, and then I muster a single up here. And in reality, it's like, no, mate. There's a giant army of Oliphants coming to Dolamroth. Get elites in Dolamroth, mate. Don't try and do stupid, clever stuff. Just defend Dolamroth. Sank have done similar things with like Grey Haven. Someone's coming for Grey Haven, and I'm like, I will move this dwarf and I will move this Shire man to Tower Hill. It's like, no, man, just defend, get the fucking elves in Grey Havens. So yeah, don't be too clever. Sometimes, there's times to be clever, but when there's a giant army coming towards a specific stronghold, don't be too clever. Just muster. That was a game I played against Cretchet. And for some reason, I didn't defend Dolamroth properly. I was like mustering in Lossenac or something when he was coming. It's like, mate, just... Who cares about Lossenac when Dolamroth is gonna, I did it so badly that he just assumed I had Círdan ships, and I didn't have Círdan ships. I just lost the game because he just got an easy Dolamroth. So that was just me being dumb. Number 11, rushing Gandy into the wrong stronghold. I've done this before. I'm gonna wait a second. Give me a sec. Okay, I'm just making it so this doesn't take up the whole screen. So yeah, rushing Gandy into the wrong stronghold. So this ties into what I said earlier about sending Gandy to defend. Late game, you draw, we prove the swifter, and then you get excited and you're like, yes, I can save Minas Tirith. Gandy, go. And then you do it, and then you realise, Minas Tirith has only got 3-1-1, and the enemy has got 2 bigger stacks coming from Minas Tirith, and Gandy's probably going to die in there if they get even like halfway decent, if they have a deadly strike that goes well, you can get, 5 hits on the combat roll. Even Gandy can't stop that. Or they have other good cards, good anti-Gandy cards, whatever. Where in reality, there was another big stack that was going for, I don't know, let's say Lorien. Or somewhere else on the board, and maybe that army wasn't as big, and there was less of a guaranteed chance of the Shadow taking that stronghold. Maybe you had potentially not drawn muster cards for that stronghold yet, so there was a chance that you could not only bring Gandy in, but you could also draw a card like Celeborn's Galadrim and defend it further. So yeah, I think I lost a game once, or potentially lost a game because I did exactly that. I just got excited, sent Gandy in, he died, and it wasn't the best strategic move. This one's quite broad. Imprecise mustering and dice usage need to be on point about priorities, etc. I feel like if I start talking about that, I'll just go on for days. But yeah, just broadly speaking, this kind of goes into like the way that you actually think about the game. Again, how do you, when you're at the start of the turn, how do you what's your thought process? Do you look at your dice? Do you plan out your turn? Do you think about what the opponent could be doing? Things like that. Again, that's a whole other topic. Probably needs a whole video. And there are people who are much smarter than me who can have talk about how they think about the game and process their turns. But yeah, something to think about. Moved the Fellowship too far away from Minas Tirith and couldn't get crucial companions in to defend it. Yeah, so I think this was a game where I brought the Fellowship through Moria. And we were like skulking about through, heading towards Mordor, as you do, as the free people. And when you're in this kind of, no man's land, or no man lands, area between Druiden, Dread Marshes, Western Immin Mule, Eastern Immin Mule, you've got choices, which way do you want to go? Maybe you want to go to Druiden. If there's no big enemy forces, it makes sense to go towards Minas Tirith. But sometimes you don't want to go too close to Minas Tirith because there's enemy armies there that might get free rerolls on you if you get too close. If you go to Dead Marshes and with the Fellowship you get revealed in Dead Marshes and there's a big army in Osgiliath or North Ithilien, they can just send a little Nazgul and a single Goblin man to come and sit on you, and then they get 2 free rerolls, right? So in those kind of games, maybe I was like, oh, I'll go up here to Eastern Immin Mule, and then or Daggerlad, and then I guess I was in a position where I desperately needed to defend Minas Tirith. Maybe I was doing fine for corruption, and I didn't have the guys. I couldn't get them into Minas Tirith to save the day. And so maybe I had to take the guys into Mordor, and this can be an issue. This is something that is I think I didn't quite appreciate when I started the game is it's possible in some games to have too big of a fellowship in Mordor. Sometimes you want to evacuate or kill some schmucks. You know, you want Legolas to get beheaded. You want Gimli to fall on his own axe. Like you want these guys, the hobbits, to get assassinated, so that you can get to Smeagol quicker. Not Smeagol, Gollum, because Gollum, he might be a slimy little fool, but he gets you through Mordor quick. He gets you up that track quick. You know, him and Strider are the ticket in Mordor. Him and or Strider. So yeah, but in that particular game, I couldn't. If I'd gone to slightly closer, if I'd gone to Dead Marshes, maybe got some rerolls potentially, I could have then got my dudes into defend. But for some reason, I went the northern route, went through Essen Immenmute, Daggerlad, and I couldn't defend Minas Tirith, or I couldn't get them to Dol Amroth using whatever it was. I couldn't do it, and that lost me the game. So yeah, if you are choosing a path, something to think about. Forgetting about Gollum hide ability when it becomes a guide after a companion dies. Yeah, so this is a bit more of a technical rule issue that is very easy to miss when you're a new player. Is when, say you get hit by a 3 tile in Mordor or anywhere. It's your last companion. Maybe it's the 2 hobbits. Maybe it's Gimli or whatever. He dies. They die. And you have Gollum. And corruption's really tight. You're up around 8 or 9. You really, really, really want to protect yourself. But you forget that the second Gollum's guide, doesn't matter if you're halfway through eating the corruption for that particular tile, you can immediately use his guide ability to reveal. So actually, it should be reveal, not hide. You can reveal using Gollum, and then it eats up that 1 corruption. So yeah, so the 2 corruption would be eaten by killing your final companion. But Gollum can eat up that final 1. I lost a game by a single corruption. Thanks to that. So thanks to forgetting. And that was very, very annoying. Very annoying. So yeah. Right. Okay. Next one. Number 15. Not killing Saruman with Ent cards to lower chances of a rolling eyes the following turn. This is quite a specific one. This is a game where corruption, again, was very tight. And I had the option of killing Saruman using Ent cards. I think maybe Orthanc was empty. And I had a very, very good, if not a guaranteed chance of killing Saruman. But instead, I used my die for something else. I used it to defend something on something else. But I hadn't considered the fact that, like, because it was so late in the game, I was like, why do you want to kill Saruman? You know, I don't care about his leadership anymore. He's not doing anything. There's only going to be 1 more turn in the game regardless. I'm either going to win or I'm going to lose. But what I didn't take into account is the fact that, like, that 1 single die, removing it means there's a slightly lower chance of them rolling another eye, and that extra eye can be what kills you in Mordor. And that's what happened in this game. I lost by, like, again, like a single corruption on step 4, or maybe even on step 5. You know, you die making the final leap, and potentially that single, maybe they wouldn't have rolled an extra eye because they wouldn't have had Saruman's die, and I might have won the game. 16. Rushing to move Fellowship at start of turn outside of Mordor when I need to make vital army moves. Yes. Yes. Wait a second. Rushing to kill Fellowship starts and outside of Mordor when I need to make vital army moves. Oh yeah, so generally, like, broadly speaking, you do tend to want to move the Fellowship at the start of the turn. Actually, well, no, actually that's not true at all. There are loads of turns where you don't want to move the Fellowship. If you do want, often the reason to move the Fellowship is to A, stop them getting the Shadow getting rerolls on you, because they can use character dice to put Nazgul on you, use army dice to put Nazgul or armies, so they get extra rerolls. So, or they might even play a card to slow you down. If you haven't declared, they might be able to play Cruel Weather. They might be able to play any of those kind of nasty cards that hit you and reveal you. So maybe if Aragorn, especially if Strider's dead, and then you pass, and then they play Orc Patrol and reveal you, for like a 2 reveal, then you've got to use your precious character die to like hide the fellowship. You don't even get to move that turn. So like you're playing catch up and you're wasting your time. You're not making any progress. However, if you do that too much, then it goes the other way. Because if you're like, I must always move the fellowship at the start of every turn, I must always move the fellowship, then sometimes you can forget vital army moves. So I think I got too much into my head around like I must always move the fellowship, and then I forgot to do a really important army move to like block something in Gondor or defend something in Jewline. So yeah, that can hurt you. Which if you can either overdo it or underdo it. Needlessly losing cards to Warm with Sorrow and Toil when I could have played them first. Yeah, this is a classic one. This is something that you tend to pick up with time as well. Is, let's say you got a hand of nice defensive cards that will help you to heal the Fellowship. You're sitting on a Bilbo Song, a Mithril Coat and Sting. Maybe you got There Is Another Way. Maybe you got any of the above. Those cards and Warm with Sorrow and Toil is on the table. So you might think like, I want to make the most of those cards in Mordor, But if you're not going to get to Gollum anytime soon, those cards are just going to get killed by Warm with Sorrow and Toil, and you, especially if Strider's alive, and you're having to, or if you've got a big, no, actually it doesn't make any difference. If you just got a big Fellowship, they're going to get killed by Warm with Sorrow and Toil. So you've got to use them. Or if you've got just generally like good cards, if you want to have some end cards that you might want to play, them, to the attack or tank. Don't just needlessly rush to move the Fellowship and then go, oh crap, and then next thing you know, Athelas is a classic one. Athelas is the real classic one. I've done that before. You get a rush of blood to the head. It's quite a common thing for me, getting a rush of blood to the head. You get a rush of the blood to the head, you move the Fellowship straight away, start of the turn, yeah. And you're like, oh man, I just drew Athelas. And then, lo and behold, they get you for a 3-tile, and you're like, oh man, I'm going to have to do a random because I can't eat 3 corruption. And then you do the random and it kills Strider. Or like, and then you lose the power of Athelas. Or Warm with Sorrow and Toil kills Athelas because you take a random companion. And that hurts. That really hurts. Losing either Strider or Athelas, when you could have potentially played it first. For that can be a game loser. Number 18. Moving turn 2 versus 5 eyes when Gandy is already dead. Not worth the risk. So yeah, this is a game where I think I'd been hit early on. I was again like around high past Goblin's Gate. The shadow rolled 5 eyes, and I'm like, I must move the Fellowship. You must move them once per turn. You must always move them once per turn. You don't have to always move the Fellowship once per turn. I mean, as a rule of thumb, yes, it's smart. You do at least. I mean, if there are minimal eyes, you want to move them multiple times. But when Gandy's died inefficiently early on, or he's died, for whatever, Gandy's dead early on, and maybe Corruption's already not looking too sweet. You get hidden a few times in the very early game. This is turn 2. If the Shadow's rolling 5 eyes on turn 2, they've probably only got 3 dice. They might be doing like 1 army movement. They might, like, I don't feel like you're falling behind by not moving that turn, It's a tricky one because there are games where not moving will lose you the game. So everything, this is the problem with War of the Ring, man. Sometimes, like, in one game, what will be the right move will be a terrible move in another game. So you've got to kind of weigh it up. If the Shadows had a lightning start in, turn 1 militarily, and they've already got armies all over the shop, it's a bit like, okay, maybe I do need to speed up a little bit more. But if they've had a slow start, and Gandy's already died, and you're just at the beginning of the game, because I think in this game I moved against the 5 eyes, got hit. They rolled like 2 6s, then they hit me for an eye, and then it just ended up really hurting. They might have even got like 3 6s on an eye or something like that, and I just ended up needlessly eating a lot of damage, taking on a lot of damage, maybe getting revealed again, which then allowed them to play more nasty cards. When it's like maybe that turn, they just had a Palantir they couldn't have used unless I was revealed, and I gave them that opportunity. gave the shadow something to do with a bad turn when they otherwise would have had nothing to do with those 3 dice or not much to do. So yeah, in my mind, in that situation, I used to be like, yes, you must always move, but I think there are definitely times when it's better to just keep your powder dry. Don't rush those hobbits every time. Right. Number 19. Using a Mustardey to get leadership when I was planning to get Gandy in a stronghold with Gwyer here anyway. Right, okay. Okay, this is quite a specific one. Using a Mustardey to get leadership when I was planning to get Gandy. Okay, so I guess I used the Mustardey to muster him. I think it was Minas Tirith. Right, okay. So I'm guessing the thinking there is I should have maximized getting... Because if I could muster, I should have mustered an elite rather than a leader. I don't know. Let's skip that one. I don't really know what that happened there. Number 20. Feeling forced to kill Gandy to a low tile when you have a will, when the shadow is slow and you already have Aragorn. Slow down. Right, yeah. Okay, so sometimes if you're in a game and you've got an early Aragorn, you have to change the way that you think about killing Gandy. If Gandy's still alive in your early game, like, it's quite normal to kill Gandy for a 1 tile. Ultimately you do need to dunk, and there are definitely games when if you don't kill Gandy for a 1 when you've got a will showing, you're just going to be too slow. Your corruption might stay low, but you need that 5th die. If you're already on 5 dice, you don't necessarily... Going up to 6 dice is great, but killing Gandy for a 1 when you already have willingly lost 3 of your meat shield by removing Strider, and then letting Gandy also die for only a 1. That's essentially that could be what's effectively 6 HP, 6 corruption defense. You're giving up for 1 corruption. That's bad, and in a game that can lose you the game. That can use the game. So in this game, I obviously was just acting like, I can't miss this chance to get the will. I need to get up to 6 dice. No, getting from 4 to 5 dice is really important. Getting from 5 to 6 dice, you can afford to wait a bit longer there, usually. So yeah, you can change the way you think about killing Gandy when you already have Aragorn. Giving the shadow the opportunity to move leadership into an army when I could have attacked. Ah, yes, I remember this game was annoying. Yeah, so I think this game I was defending. I guess I think I needed to take back Peligir. I had a big army in Osgiliath that I'd moved from Minas Tirith to attack into Peligir, and there was a bunch of Oliphants and nonsense, but they didn't have any Nazgul leadership in there. And I presume the shadow didn't have any. Either I wasn't thinking straight. I might have played a mustering card or mustered, or I did something that just gave the shadow a little bit of tempo, gave them that 1 extra die, and it allowed them to play Black Captain Commands or play Ring Racer Abroad, or just use a character die to get the guys to defend in Peligir. And suddenly they went from 0 to 5, and that just made all the difference in that battle. All the difference. So just me being a little bit slow to attack lost me that game. And that was just a really silly little mistake, trying to be maybe a little bit too clever, a little bit too over. Sometimes you have a card that you just really want to play, but it's not actually right to play it, and you have to just do the obvious thing and just attack into the place when it has no leadership. Number 22, yeah, losing track of victory points at the end of the game. So that's just a really silly one, but it can happen, it can happen. I mean, I've had that one game where I thought I'd taken Woodland Realm and I hadn't because I'd missed that one of the attacks had been blocked by a shield wall or something like that. So it's possible to actually lose track of victory points just by not paying attention. Sometimes you might miscalculate and think, oh, if they take back Edoras, then if I take back that'll be enough. But in fact, you need to take back Edoras. And there's and that the shadow can also take another city, and you're actually think, you know, you're not looking at the full picture. So yeah, so it's good to take stock, take a deep breath, and really think clearly at the end of the game, and not just take for granted that you know you're able to defend, or the shadow you can't win that turn. Yeah, this is another classic one. 23. Not declaring the fellowship an extra step away from an army when given the chance. So this is another thing when you often like. I'm starting to realize, just going through these, how often many of these mistakes are me rushing at the start of the turn, just doing like a muscle memory move, rather than taking just that little bit of time to think. So this will be one where often it's around here, Dimrildale, past Celebrant, Southlander and Vale, or somewhere around here. The shadows put like some rerolls on you, and you just forget to declare away. Or actually, no, it's not usually that. It's usually when the shadow is next to you with an army. Maybe you're in Cart Pellegrin, or maybe you've, let's put it this, I'll start again. You're in Dimrildale. You move once. The shadow has 2 rerolls on you. You don't get hit, or and then you go to the next turn. You move to Path Celebrant, but then at the start of that turn that you've declared in Path Celebrant, there's no longer any rerolls on you. You do something else with the first move of the turn. You do something else. You're distracted. You muster. You do something that's unrelated. And with the first move, the shadow gets the 2 rerolls back on you. And that can be a game loser, you know. They hit a 6 on the second reroll, and the Nazgul reveals you for, you know, into Eastern Met. And then they play Breaking of the Fellowship, or they play, you know, Morgul Wound, whatever. And you get a couple of extra corruption. They've not only, you know, hit you for an extra move, that wouldn't have otherwise happened, but they've also played a card. And then, you know, you've eaten like 5 corruption more than you would have otherwise done, all simply because you just didn't do one little half move. You just didn't move the fellowship first thing. Or you didn't declare away when you could have declared 1 step away. Or moved. Yeah, I think it goes both ways, either moving or not declaring, when you have the opportunity in the the start of the turn. Number 24. Assuming opposition will press when they may not, sparing an escape die. Yeah. So yeah, not sparing an escape die. So this can be, just assuming, say for example, you've got I'm trying to think of where this one would have happened. Maybe it was around Helm's Deep, and I had an army in Fords of Eisen or something like that. Yeah, I'm not sure what exactly the instance was, but I just assumed the enemy was definitely going to press, and it would allow me to move my army to defend into Helm's Deep. And in fact, they didn't press, and they waited, and because I didn't have a hybrid die, I couldn't get them into defense. Something like that, basically. I didn't leave myself a hybrid or a character die or whatever to do the move that I knew that I needed to make, because I was under the assumption the shadow would 100% press. So don't assume the shadow will always press. It could also happen up in the Woodland Realm in somewhere like Dale. You know, you might think, oh, they're definitely going to press, which will allow Dale to, you know, yeah, that's more likely actually. It was probably in Dale. I was probably thinking, oh yeah, they'll attack again, and then I can move Dale back into Woodland Realm and then defend Erebor, and that'll mean that Woodland Realm isn't weak and undefended. No, they just attack you once and stop. Then they attack you once and then they stop, and then Dale just gets stuck here and never gets it, and then just gets wiped out. So yeah, don't just take that for granted. Not using Mirror of Galadriel when you have the chance. Yeah, that might have been one where I lost it due to War with Sorrow and Toil, or I didn't calculate the dice quite correctly. I'm not sure what happened there, but yeah, pretty straightforward. If you need to use Mirror of Galadriel to get the Will of the West, maybe it's because Day Without Dawn suddenly became a possibility, and then, you know, Mirror of Galadriel, even though that's a terrible situation. You play Mirror of Galadriel, get your will, and then they play Day Without Dawn. So maybe if the Southrons aren't at war yet, you play Mirror of Galadriel ASAP. 26. Not moving the Fellowship when they're in open territory and the Shadow player still has a... The Shadow player still has a character card in hand. Yeah, again, I think I've covered that one. Just move the Fellowship. If there's any chance that the Shadow can hit you with cards before you move, if you pass, you want to just get a move in, you know, especially if Strider's dead. Number 27, not mustering Rivendell when it's the last weak stronghold. You have the chance and other Strelvan strongholds already covered. Yeah, this is a classic one where it kind of ties into what I said about Woodland Realm earlier. There's no enemies anywhere near Rivendell. Rivendell looks safe. You're like, I don't need to. You got spare musters, but you use them to, like, I don't know, do some other like needless thing elsewhere on the board. And then Shadow has one of those monster turns where they suddenly play Shadows in the Misty Mountains, and they play Rage of the Dunlendings, and then they play, they move one army up here, and then they also then play, I don't know, like a Shadows lengthens, whatever. And next thing you know, there's a giant army in Rivendell, and you're still stuck there with 2 measly little elven elites, and it just gets wiped out. Never underestimate how fast the Shadow can just descend on you with a couple of choice mustering cards and a turn where you just don't roll any mustering dice yourself. So yeah, as a rule of thumb, when in doubt, muster your weakest stronghold, because at some point the Shadow's going to target it. 28. Using dice too early on final turn and losing chance to dunk. So I think this would be a game where, again, I've probably tried to be a bit too cute and thinking that I could survive through defending. And in doing so, underestimating the Shadow's power and losing my kind of chance to actually dunk. So yeah, on the final turn, unless you really need to, don't rush your moves if you have a chance of dunking, because you want to see if the Shadow can win that turn. If the Shadow can win that turn, unless you feel like, sometimes it's a coin toss and you've got to just weigh it up. Is it better to defend, if I move Gandy using this character die into, by playing Gwai here, the Windlord, maybe that will improve you. That's give you better odds of getting a dunk the next turn. But if you're really sure the Shadow's got to have a great chance of dunking, don't just rush your moves and do a half. You don't want to do half and half. You either want to go for the dunk or you want to defend. If you really, really think that they can, it can determine the outcome. 29. Not getting rid of Palantir of Orthanc when sprinting. This was a game I played against Polajuna. A game where I got an incredibly lucky start. I was just stormed the Fellowship. I think I might have got into like Mordor on turn 4, something stupid like that. Polajuna played Palantir, and I thought that I could just bludgeon my way through the Palantir of Orthanc, not get rid of it, not use a ring or a will, and just by sheer force of just running, just eating, taking all of that corruption to the face, I could get over the line. But as it was, obviously, Polajuna is a very good player and was just absolutely spamming card cycling every opportunity through the Witch King and through Palantir. And as a result, was able to get enough red tiles and enough nastiness thrown at me that I ended up losing on the final step. I think it was to a corruption. So at the time, I was just like, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to get through it. But you hit a couple of red tiles, you hit a couple of nasty cards, when all it would have taken is one ring, one will, and you would have taken away, a huge chunk of that cycling ability. So yeah, generally speaking, getting rid of Palantir, especially in a game where, everything, I don't think, from what I recall, Polajun had any chance of winning that game militarily because he was committing so hard to corruption that I should have just been taking it a little bit slower, killed Palantir, and that was just me being, again, just trying. I think that game only lasted about 25 minutes because it was just a complete race. It was just ridiculous. It's probably died of corruption on turn 6, something stupid. Okay, 30. Using a ring instead of Fear Foes or Mazarbel to move companions. So this is one that happened very recently. Very, very silly. I used a ring instead of Fear Foes. Sometimes I just think I relate Fear Foes and Mazarbel so much to getting the dwarves or the North dwarf respectively that I actually sometimes almost forget that whether you're getting them to war or not, doesn't matter. That's just a great remove dudes from the Fellowship or move guys around the map card. That's the card that you just want to use to move your hobbits around if they're outside of the Fellowship. Move Gandy around, move Strider around in this case. and I just forgot that I had it. And I'm not sure if it lost me that game, but it was certainly a very silly thing to do. I think it might have actually, because I think I gave the opponent a ring, and that ring, I was one move away from winning the game. So yeah, that probably did lose me that game. Needlessly giving my opponent a ring. So yeah, don't be dumb like me. 31, wasting very powerful cards in combat when there's still an outside shot at dunking. Right, I think this was a game where I thought that I had very little chance of dunking. So I started throwing away things like really awesome cards in combat. You know, something like, I think I used, in this space, I think I used Kid and Ships, because I was like, I need to just go for the military victory or just try and defend. And as it was, by going really slowly, I did have a very good chance of dunking. But because I'd used Kid and Ships in some random throwaway combat for one hit, I ended up not being able to defend Dol Amroth, and then very, very narrowly losing the game because I didn't roll enough character dice when I was on step 4 to win the game. So that might have even been the same game as the, you know, it was the one that I mentioned before. This was very recent, but yeah. Put it this way, you know, Kid and Ships is a game-changing card. Often, you know, it can be a game-defining card. Put it that way. The same can be for things like Dead Men of Dunharrow, you know, key mustering cards. They can be huge game-defining cards. A charge? How often is a charge a game-defining card? A charge will get you one hit if you're lucky, and it's very unlikely that a single hit will win or lose you the game. Whereas 4 HP in Dol Amroth can win you the game. Even if Dol Amroth isn't under threat right at that point, it's a huge weapon to have up your sleeve if you've got some elves in your force pool. So yeah, sometimes just even if you don't think it's going to make a difference, you're like, oh, I'm never going to use that this game. It's still worth keeping it up your sleeve instead of using it for a charge, I would say. All right, we're almost done. The next ones are ones that didn't actually specifically lose me a game, but almost lost me a game or contributed to me, like, you know, yeah, just didn't help me. Okay, this is just a really dumb one. It's obviously didn't lose me this game, but going early Aragorn, you get Aragorn early, and then you forget to get Gandalf. You forget to use a will to get Gandalf. So that's just really absent-minded and silly, but I've done that before because you're up to 5 dice and you kind of, you know, because I'm so used to playing, I don't go for Aragorn that much. So when I do, you need to just change the way you think about it. That might just be a me one rather than a useful tip. Needlessly moving the Fellowship early game when you still have a Palantir in hand. Get the free card draw. Yeah, this is something I see new players do quite a lot. If you have a Palantir in hand, unless you've got another reason like to hold on to it, because maybe you want to use it to hide if Gandalf dies, and that's your priority. Generally speaking, just like play the cards and get the free card cycling. That's like free cards. You know, an early card cycle can, again, hugely turn the tide of a game. Don't forget to do that. That card cycling ability of Gandalf's can be very, very powerful. Tunnel vision over only sending Gandalf into sieges with Weeper the Swifter / Gwaihir. Remember, you can also send other companions to save the day. Yeah, that's true. I think for a while I kind of saw that card as like a move Gandy to save the day card. Gwaihir doesn't have to just be for Gandalf. It can be for getting other companions around the map and can be just as powerful. So yeah, I'm guessing this is a game where I probably, you know, should have got Boromir out of the Fellowship, or should have got, yes, some other Captains of the West into play. And that's it. That's my long and rambling list of tips. So hopefully that will be useful for some players if you manage to get through all 50 minutes of it. But yeah, some things that I have learnt through playing and losing at War of the Ring. Ciao, ciao, bye-bye.